Now recording. I am a new recording podcast subcast thing.
What is a subcat? No, never mind. Just no. I don't want to know. I don't care.
Why don't you care?
The right answer.
Yep.
Everybody needs to care about all of our stuff.
I just know how any conversation like that turns very quickly with you. So
well,
anyway,
I'm Grumpy Dungeon Master Christopher. That's Grumpy Dungeon Master Jay. That's Kristian. Glare.
Back.
Yeah, because you're the only one of us that I think has actually read over the stuff and has legitimate concerns and topics to talk about. I just don't want to know. I'm scared. I'm scared on the inside. I'm scared on the outside.
I watched a bunch of the videos. Like I just don't remember that stuff because it was a few days ago.
Jay, you don't remember anything that you do from like an hour-to-hour basis.
Yeah, pretty much.
You have all of your knowledge of things that you've watched up until like 2001, and then everything is gone.
Accurate.
Yeah.
Sounds like a recipe for a happy life.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. That's why I'm not generally that grumpy of a person.
I have early onset dementia. Life is great.
Yeah, is what it is. I get to live the same days over and over again.
That'd be terrible. Well, we are basically reliving the same thing over and over again because this new edition of D&D is just like every other new edition of D&D. Everybody hates it and has problems with it until it comes out and then becomes the norm after a year or so. It's like having a new Doctor in Doctor Who. Everybody hates a new Doctor. By the time the second season comes around, people are okay with it. And then by the third season, he's the best Doctor that's ever existed on the face of the planet. And then they're sad that he's leaving for a different Doctor that's coming in.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is the cycle. As soon as a real 6th edition comes out, people will scream about how 5.5 was the greatest thing, and why can't we just stick with that? Even if they hated 5.5 when it came out.
I mean, if they're not going to 6th edition now, I'll be honest, I don't think they ever are. I mean, it's been 10 years. 10 years is usually the cycle for the life of a system. And we're there. This essentially is 6th edition. I know they're still calling it 5e revised, but there's enough changes that I would say, again, I'll restate the point that the math is not changing, thus it's not a new quote-unquote edition, but enough has changed that this is a new edition, and in my personal opinion. So
it's a rework of all the classes, but the rules didn't change whatsoever.
Yeah.
Generally, when you have a new edition, the rules do change. From second to third, it was big changes. From 3 to 3.5, there were no real rules changes. From 3.5 to 4, big rules changes. 4 to 5, well, mostly some rules changes.
Yeah, I think
it's a point release.
I definitely think that this version of D&D, we need to give it props for basically being so decent that we can just basically move on with just a different coat of paint as it was for the next edition release. I mean, the D20 system, how they have it working now, how the math has been working. We discussed this a lot last week and the weeks prior to this episode, and I think that this version is working well. I mean, there are other people out there who have taken 5th and did weird changes. I was looking at Renegade's what they call it, the D20 Essence system, which is 5th edition with some minor rule changes, and Heroes for Hire, which is 5th edition with some minor rules changes, and
Level Up 5e.
Level Up 5e. There's was it another one, D20 Frontier or something that's been kickstarted recently that has basically a D20 system built off of 5e. So you got to kind of give it to them. 5e worked real well, and they're not changing what ain't broke. And we discussed some of the player handbook changes last week. We got the player perspective. My wife isn't here this time. She wants to come back for when we discuss the Bard and the Warlock. But what classes are we discussing in detail today? The Fighter, the Paladin, and
no, we're fighter, paladin, barbarian, rogue, warlock, druid, wizard, and ranger.
We are not going to go through all of those.
Well, we're not doing subclasses. We're just going through the basics of some of the changes.
We have to go through the subclasses because the fighter changes are irrelevant unless you go to the subclasses.
If there's a specific subclass that you want to talk
all
about,
of them, every single.
I don't know about all that.
The fighter is very personal to me, and my biggest.
I mean, I'm not talking about all the wizard subclasses because it doesn't really matter. The subclasses, they're not as big of an issue. It's the core of what does each class do? Does it operate right?
I mean, when I look at
let's start with the fighter and see where we go. See how
the
far we
opposite
can
of
get.
that thought. All right. So, Kristian, since you're the one that actually watched the videos, you took notes, you did the homework.
The homework for your podcast.
For my podcast. Thank you very much. I appreciate you greatly. The 34-minute video, which was about the fighter, I wasn't going to sit there and watch it because I'm tired.
You love the fighters. You love the fighter. It's the most important class to you.
It is. It is. So go ahead, Kristian, and give us the overview of what you saw for the fighter that stands out for you.
All right. So I think the biggest thing they did is they've turned Second Wind into the fighter's core resource. You get you get more uses of it. Not a ton. It's not like going to be like you're going to be using it all the time. But you start out with 2, and then I think eventually you get up to 4 or 5 maybe. But you get to use it to do things like they do Tactical Mind, where you can use it on certain skill checks to add to a skill check. You get eventually it upgrades to Tactical Reposition, to whenever you do use your Second Wind, you could move half your movement without provoking opportunity attacks. They gave you Tactical Master, which means you can replace the weapon mastery property of whatever weapon you're wielding with a subset of 3 push, sap, or slow. So effectively, on one weapon, you can always have 4 masteries available to you. And then gave you Studied Attack, that whenever you miss an attack roll, you get advantage on the next attack roll you make before the end of your next turn. They did address one of the big things that I had requested, and I think a lot of other people requested because they actually brought it up in the video, which was a lot of people said, why didn't you just fold the Battle Master into the core class and make maneuvers part of being a fighter for all fighters? This is one of the big things that I thought they should do.
The simple answer to that is bad players will get very confused.
Well, I think it
will basically make every single class exactly the same if they let everyone have access to maneuvers.
It would have been more work because they would have had to come up with more ways to make the subclasses different from each other, by either giving them subclass specific maneuvers or something different what they could do with it. But the reason they stated was fighter is the most popular class to pick, and it is the number 1 class, especially for new players or people that are just starting out, because it is probably the least complicated class.
Right, but then you don't make them play Battle Master. You get them to play Champion, because Champion does. You don't have to. But you don't have to learn anything new.
Right, that's why Battle Master is a subclass and not part of the core class, because they didn't want to make new players go, okay, cool, you're a new fighter. Now look at this list of 30 different maneuvers and pick which ones you want to do. Because at that point it becomes, a spellcaster. I play with people that have been playing Dungeons and Dragons for, 30 years and still won't play a wizard because they look at the list of spells and just say, I'm not reading all that.
So were they specific on how many second winds a fighter gets?
No, they just, other than that, you start out with 2 and then you will get an increased amount at certain points.
And it still allows you to basically use up a hit die to heal yourself, right?
Yeah. You use a hit die, you add that plus your fighter level. So you get a couple more, but you might be using it to do other things occasionally, like outside of combat.
So I know we kind of touched on this last week with the potions as a bonus action. I am not a fan of the idea that something needs to happen during a bonus action. And this whole idea of fighters getting more second wins to allow them to leverage bonus action more, I don't like it. Like, I'll give you a good example. Is you had said last podcast, Kristian, that you don't notice players ever getting hung up on bonus actions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I stated that I see it all the time. Okay. And last night I was playing my game on stream as I normally do. Definitely watch it. Twitch.tv/Grumpy Dungeon Masters on Saturdays, starting at 8. They went through and destroyed Xanathar in Xanathar's lair. It was quite amazing. It was a great video. You can go watch it. It's amazing. And you can sit there and watch throughout our 4-hour stream the multiple times the players would do something and then still have a bonus action unused and then sit there for a minute or two going, shit, I got a bonus action. What do I do with it? I need to do something with it. This, that, the other thing. Oh, I guess I can't do anything with it. My wife even said specifically during the stream is like, shit. Well, I did my attacks. There's something else I can do. I still got my bonus action. I guess minute later, I'll just give my bonus action Bardic Inspiration to the Paladin for his next attack. And like, it happened so much. I was keying off of it every single time. Because, like I said, I experienced that problem a lot in AL, in my games, just in general when I'm watching. People getting hung up on bonus actions. And I'm really afraid of this idea of moving to everyone has to do something with their bonus action. And the second win kind of being the fighter in on that. Where, okay, now you're going to get more second wins. So now you're going to have more things to do with your bonus actions. I like the idea of, doing and giving the fighter more things to do outside of combat, but so the tactical chef allows them to use their second wind to heal, also lets them to move half their movement without attack opportunity. That's okay. That just adds more functionality to the second
it's an
wind,
which is cool.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. I just don't want them to get hung up on.
I think we'll have to wait and see how many there are, because if they increased it to from at 2, that's not a whole lot more. You get one extra use of it, and if it increases slowly, like if you end up at level 20 and you have 4, then
them saying that it's at 2. I think it's just going to match your proficiency
bonus.
Have
and then
one
that's not a ton.
Second win proficiency bonus, so you have what, 6 by
at the highest level of play that no one ever plays.
Right. So
in most campaigns, you might get to 4.
Yeah. So if that's all that really happens with the second wind, I'm fine. I just don't want it to be overshadowed. I don't want them to get hung up on using a bonus action.
I think it's just there to give the fighter a little more sustain, and to actually, I think a lot of I've seen a couple of different classes and subclasses get more ways to either heal or dish out temporary hit points. And I think, or at least what I'm hoping, is that they're trying to get away from you have to have a cleric, and you end up with every group that I've ever played, at least, everyone's always looking around, and there has to be somebody that has to step forward and be the martyr that goes, I'll play the cleric if no one else will.
Okay, and that again goes back to 4th edition, where that was a key component of the system that they designed. They gave everybody in that game second wind. They allowed every player to...
But now you have the cleric that has to be the healer, and having played a cleric in a game, and I remember getting dirty looks every time I would cast a spell, because people were like, how many spells do you have left for healing? Like, every time I would try to do anything that wasn't healing, everyone's always like, what if I get hurt?
So I've played healers. I'm sorry, I played clerics plenty of times in 5e, and I explained very quickly, you get a healing word, buddy. Like, if you hit the ground, I'm going to get you back standing. But that's all the healing you're getting during combat.
Yeah, and we've played it because I remember playing in a campaign where a buddy of ours did play the cleric, and he was playing a life cleric. Bless his heart.
The most boring thing ever.
Yeah, and it was. I feel like he was bored for most of the time. And it took our DM giving him some cool items and some things that he could do, so he would have ways to be in the fight without using his spell slots that everyone was insisting that he save for healing, so that he could actually have fun. And I think that was. I think if you have more classes
it's
that
poor
have some
game
ways
design.
to, yeah, it is. I agree. And
Yeah.
but if you get more sustain in some of the classes, you open up that avenue of, hey, we don't have to rely on the cleric to do that. The cleric can actually have fun, or we can play in a game that doesn't have a cleric.
So why not go back to the edition that didn't require a healing class that become playable? Everyone had the second wind that they could pop a hit die as a bonus action.
I can't even stress how much I hate the idea of every class just being able to heal itself.
Well, everyone can pick up the healer feat. It doesn't matter who you are right now. Okay. And that procs a shit ton of healing to pick people up. In 4th edition, everyone can do a medicine check and trigger a hit die to be rolled on somebody as a medicine check. Okay. Why not bring that back? Granted, I'm with you, Jay, where I don't like everyone having second wind, but if the idea is to make a game that doesn't require you to have a healer, they tried that 10 years ago and they hated it. So why are they going back to it? But just
I think they're trying. It's a balance. It's about, hey, can we get through it without them? It's not saying that having healers or people that can do that stuff isn't useful, but it's, can we do it so that they're not always required to get the dirty look when they decide they want to cast a fun spell or do something cool in combat other than just heal.
Yeah,
as long as your system is designed around the Trinity, you're always going to have that.
Sure.
That's a straight problem.
Because in our party, we had a party of a cleric that was a healer. We had a bard who could cast healing spells. We had a ranger who had healing spells. We had a druid who had healing spells. So we had all these people that had healing, but none of them would ever cast them because the druid was a moon druid, so they're permanently in wild shape every time in a fight. Just all the time. They were never casting spells. We were lucky if they would cast a cold lightning or some sort of concentration spell before they wild shaped. The ranger was just hunter's mark all the time or whatever. And
maybe
the
I'm
bard
extremely
was all
lucky.
control spells.
Maybe I'm extremely lucky because I actually have the opposite problem where, in my current group for Waterdeep, I have my main player, Dimitri. I call him main player, but the experienced player, Dimitri, who's playing a cleric rogue hybrid. And that's what he likes to play. Okay. I think this time he's going more cleric than rogue with his character, but he has the ability to, pick people up if needed to with spells. He also uses it for, control of the battlefield and stuff like that. That actually helps a lot. He also has the healer feat and tons of healers kits. He always makes sure to bring those along. So he really is the party healer, but there's still plenty of times where he's getting in the fray, mixing it up, stabbing people with a dagger, and holding his own. My wife is a bard who has healing spells. She picks up people when needed. We got a paladin with all his lay on hands and healing spells. So he's using it mostly for smites, as you do.
Yep.
But he still picks up people and heals them when necessary.
I mean, we played through all the way to level 30 from level 1 with 0 healers.
Yeah.
Muffin joined us. He was like a level 10 or somewhere around there and played a paladin, which gave us lay on hands. But that was it. It is not required in this edition to have a healer. You don't have to play the Holy Trinity that you're talking about by any means in 5e. Use potions, buy healing wands. There's a million ways to get healing in this game that don't require an actual person to do it.
With that change to the potion, making it a bonus action.
Yeah.
I hate it because basically I feel like it's going to make healers irrelevant. It's going to throw off the math between the monsters. They're just going to get more buffy. And then you look at this with fighters getting more second wind, it means more charging. I understand more second wind, so you're not having that party that's like, oh, we have a small skirmish. Let's rest for an hour and get all of our hit points back and get recharged for second wind. I like that aspect of it. But this
second wind doesn't go that long. I am playing a fighter right now, and every time I use a second wind, it's like it lasts for about half of a hit.
Right, but then again, you just do a short rest afterwards, and you get it back. If the party's not built for taking a lot of short rests, it can get annoying. So maybe they're giving second winds too to kind of like help stretch that out, so you're not taking so many
and
short rests.
You got to realize too, like not everybody's getting an extra healing thing. I'm pretty sure it's just the fighters who are getting the second wind.
No, everyone got a healing thing with the potion as a bonus action.
Well,
that's
whatever.
straight up a thing.
Once again, you are literally the only DM who doesn't use that and hasn't been using that.
Then mark my words, it is going to be the biggest headache of this edition.
I've been using it for years now. It was never a headache.
I've been using it the whole time.
It is going to ruin this game.
I've been using it for 8 years. It works great.
Because I've listened to last week's podcast. If you want to, I'm not going to read it the same thing. But
I know. I think you're just we have very different opinions.
Yeah, we both think you're incorrect on this.
I'm not. Mark my words. There's going to be a dev comment 2 years from now that goes, so bonus actions as a bonus action was a terrible thing. Chris Purser was fired for it. Hasbro's bankrupt now.
I don't think so. Since like I said, the reason they did it is because they recognized that A, they got tons of feedback on it, and B, like everyone was already homebrewing this. Yeah. Every freaking podcast of D&D or actual plays that you see already uses this house rule.
And that's fair enough. So let's move off of that. Let's get to Tactical Master. I haven't. They've been touting the Weapon Master properties for a while now. So
I guess this is a good place to talk about them. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just do a quick aside about weapon masteries, and because I got an issue with that.
We know you hate them. You've been saying it for months now.
It's not that I hate them. It's just like they're already in the game. But just go ahead and go over weapon masteries real quick, because that's a big part of the fighter kit.
Okay, so let me find the thing on weapon masteries.
Yeah, like I don't have it pulled up as to what specific masteries do. I know.
I remember most of them, but I want to get it right.
Yeah, the only one I remember off the top of my head, and it's very specific because it's for the rogue, was with the daggers. If you're using a dagger, it allows you a second attack with it. Yeah.
It's important to kind of, it works when you're using a light weapon, because a light weapon gives you the ability to make a second attack. And if you're using a weapon with Nick means you can make that second attack as part of the attack action instead of using a bonus action.
Which actually is, I love it. I know we're not on the rogues yet, but I love that for rogues specifically because sort of the flavor of rogues has always been daggers, yet daggers have always sucked ass. So now it wouldn't be too bad.
I do like that. Again, not to get too much on the rogue, but the weapon masteries for the rogue start off as just daggers and was it short sword?
It makes playing that kind of classic double dagger rogue feel
more
good.
Viable. Yeah, I like that aspect of it.
So here we go. So and we don't know exactly what weapons have what masteries right now. They give they give an example with each one. You have cleave, and their example weapon is a great axe, so you can make some extrapolations based on that.
It's any heavy weapon has cleave. Yeah.
Yeah. When you hit with an attack, you can make a second attack against another creature within 5 feet. You don't get your ability modifier to damage, but
I mean,
I love it.
My personal opinion, I think cleave should just be a feat that you could take, but
it's already a variant rule.
Yeah, a variant rule, not an actual rule. So
I mean, you guys are variant rule of potions as bonus actions, so just bring in cleave.
Well, that wasn't a variant rule. Thing. That was a homebrew.
Yeah, but no, I like cleave. I think it's great. It makes using certain heavy weapons maybe different. The next one is it's not all heavy weapons. See here we have greatsword, and this is graze. If you miss, you still deal damage equal to your ability modifier.
Yeah, that was the same thing in the UA. That didn't change.
Yep. I don't think any of these really changed. We just went over Nick with the daggers, which is great for people that want to do the double dagger. I don't know what other weapons might have Nick. That'd be interesting to see if anything other than a dagger has it.
Yeah.
Push, the example weapon being a great club, is when you hit a creature, you move them 10 feet straight away from you.
I could swear that I heard Jeremy Crawford say that was on crossbows as well.
I think they did mention that it is on crossbows, but he wasn't specific on. I think it's on heavy, but
on heavy. He
wasn't specific. He just said crossbow, which makes sense for a heavy. I can see that on a heavy crossbow. But
I definitely like the the fantasy feel of all the weapons, getting these weapon mastery things. But a lot of it is just like, it's kind of already there if you want it to activate that in your game. Like so I mean, like cleave is the better example. Graze is a good example. Those are variant rules in the current DMG, and they're a little different than this, but they're there essentially.
I think that's part of the problem, though.
Yeah,
They're in the DMG where a lot of people don't look. Admittedly, even a lot of DMs, especially experienced DMs, don't read through the DMG.
That book exists as a list of magic items.
And
that book exists as a paperweight.
And players, especially, have no idea that these are there. So putting these into a sense where they're part of the game and players can see them front and center makes sense. So, anyways, the next one is Sap. Sap is when you hit it with them, you inflict disadvantage on the target's next attack.
That's not what a sap is, but sure.
I
mean, that should be called daze.
Yeah, I think daze might be another condition they added in that does something else. So maybe that's why they.
I mean,
sap. Figure out
if you sap someone, they're unconscious.
Yeah, you knock them out.
They don't just get
that's
disadvantaged.
The name of the property, ill-named or not. Slow is the next one. When you hit a creature and deal damage, you reduce their speed by 10 feet.
That better be on a ranged weapon, otherwise it's useless.
The example is light crossbow.
Okay, good.
Slow.
Now,
which I think is great for a ranged weapon, because as playing a ranged character, that's exactly what you want to do, is keep people away from you.
Yeah.
So the next one is Topple. The example they give you is a maul. When you hit a creature, you can force them to make a Constitution save. This is the one I really don't like. Constitution save is always 8 plus the ability modifier you use for your attack plus your proficiency bonus. This is the one I hate, because I feel like anybody using this, especially if you have multiple attacks, where every attack you're forcing a roll.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah, too many dice rolls that are unnecessary.
It just slows things down. Either give a condition for when Topple works, or don't use it if you can't make a good kind of if-then trigger.
Yeah, I'm guessing it knocks them prone or something.
Yeah, it knocks them prone. You fall prone, but you get a save, I guess, because prone is really good, especially on a melee weapon. But it's going to slow things down.
Yep.
The last one is Vex. When you hit and deal damage with this, it gives you advantage on your next attack roll.
I don't like this one either.
I don't mind that one, but I could see they were running out of good naming. Like, Vex is just a bad name.
I don't like the ability.
This is another good one for rogues, really.
I already use flanking in my games. So I kind of already have a situation where permanent advantage is like a thing. I'm definitely going to have to take flanking away in 5e Revise, mostly because of Vex. Like, I don't need them to be able to gang up on someone and get advantage, which I feel works real well, at least in the games that I play. I understand there was a problem with it, especially in 4th edition with the conga line, but that I never ran into that problem myself. But I kind of feel like Vex is just going to allow people to use short swords and just get permanent advantage on things. And like for the rogue, it's really great, because now I have advantage because I'm always getting sneak attack. But how does that affect the subclasses where, like, swashbuckler, if they bring that back, and now I have these conditions that give me advantage on my attack, so I get my sneak attack. Well, why bother even picking that subclass then, when you can just attack with a short sword?
Well, I don't know. We'll find out if they bring swashbuckler back.
Yeah. So a lot of these are really good. Like, they're in theme. Like cleave with a great axe is great, but you should also be able to cleave with a great sword. That's kind of its whole fucking military purpose, was cleaving out the legs of horses. That's why they were invented. And I just...
Yeah, but trying to bring too much real world use into your fantasy game with dragons and wizards just always an exercise in frustration.
It is, but the great sword is just... That's not... It's
really purposeless to get through. Yeah.
Grazing weapons are like rapiers, where like okay, I may be missing, but I'm still nicking you, and that's a dagger thing. But uh, I don't know.
I think I could see Greys with the great swords. Like even if I hit you square on in the chest plate of your armor with a big heavy sword and an overhand swing, it's still gonna hurt.
Oh yeah, it's definitely gonna hurt because it's
So
basically getting hit
that's
with a club.
Yeah, that's your days. That's your Greys. It's I hit you hard enough, even
So
if I don't.
why doesn't a great club, which should absolutely be having that ability, because you're getting hit with a freaking great club and crushing damage hurts like a bitch, and you're always gonna feel it, no matter you block it or not. Why does that get pushed and not graze?
Because we're playing a fantasy game that is just doing an approximation of stuff.
So only metal long swords can graze you, but push weapons
Yeah,
do any extra damage.
I'm gonna introduce you to a game called Rollmaster. That way you can get all of your little nitpicky details into one game.
I will say though, this kind of goes back to what I was going to say with the fighter. Is they get tactical master at level 9, which lets them replace the weapon mastery property on a weapon when they hit with a push, sap, or slow. So if I can then, with a great club, replace the push with graze, I'm good. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
But why can't I then replace the graze with a push? I mean, I can tell you how many times I've hit somebody with a two-hander and a LARP and knocked him back 5 feet. So
well, you can. It means because if you're using a great sword, you always have access to push, sap, or slow. So use that great sword.
No, you can only replace a weapon master property when you hit something with a push, sap, or slow.
Yeah, it would have to be.
No. It's you replace the weapon mastery of what you are wielding with either push, sap, or slow.
So I can't put graze on the great club.
That is correct.
Yeah,
you can only put push, sap, and slow on things.
The way that at least this note reads, it reads the opposite. If it's push, slap, or slow, you can replace it with something else.
No, it is. Okay. It is. You always push, sap, and slow are basically always available to you, no matter what weapon you're wielding. Which is going to be weird when you stab someone with the rapier and say, "I push them," but
yeah,
it is what it is, I guess.
But it is what it is. I think it's a great thing for fighters. It's going to be weird and not make sense in some situations, but I think it's a great versatile for the class that's supposed to be the the weapon class.
Yeah, I definitely like that it's there. 9's a little high, but maybe it's not. I'd like to see it better at like 5 or 6. But I understand why they have they only got so many abilities and so many levels.
Yeah.
But I
some
like
of those are taken up by SIP. Yeah, overall, I think it's good. I do like the 13th level feature. I think that's great.
Which one's that?
That's studied attacks, which means when you miss, your next attack gets advantage.
I've always liked playing, especially for the battle masters, where you can analyze an opponent and discover something about them, and we'll discuss that when we get to the subclasses. I like that they brought that in kind of a little bit, because I felt like most fighters, especially if you watch like fantasy movies or whatnot, the fighters always get to that point in time where they have to learn the opponent and figure them out, before something. So they miss constantly and they stop, take that deep breath and focus. And now they have advantage and they get attacked. So I like the flavoring. So the base changes of the fighter I've been pretty good on. I like the epic boon. I like that they can go above level 20 or go above 20 for a stat.
Yep. I think that's really cool. I like that they're really emphasizing that the fighter is not just a soldier necessarily. You have multiple, you could just as well be the general that is using your mind and thinking about how to do things, as well as you are just a grunt.
Notes here say that they added blind fighting, interception, and unarmed fighting from Tasha's, which is cool. I like those.
Mm-hmm.
Interception, though, is a little broke. Having played a numerous amount of games with fighters with interception, it trivializes levels 1 through 5. No one dies anymore. And
I'm interested to see if they've changed anything, because they did mention that they have made tweaks to the fighting styles. They didn't say anything about what those tweaks were or which ones received the tweaks, but they did say that the fighting styles have changed.
If interception basically reduced the damage and you took the remainder of it and maybe reduce it from a D10, that would be okay because then you're actually intercepting the blow. And I know it's still a die roll, but when you're a goblin and you're attacking somebody and you finally get the attack in, it deals 6 damage after like 6 missed attacks from 6 different goblins. You get that one attack in for that 6 damage, and the guy intercepts it and negates all of it. I found that I would have to keep continually scaling up the monsters or the amount of monsters just to get by the fact that someone had interception.
Yeah, it's one of those weird ones that's really good at lower levels and
really bad at higher ones.
Yeah, really bad at high level.
I play a lot of low level games, and it really threw off the thing. And I had one AL game where we had 3 fighters with interception. I didn't do a single point of damage the entire game. It was the most annoying AL game I've ever had.
All right, so now it's a whole team of like fighters and bards, and all the bards have silvery barbs, and all the fighters have interception, and literally you'll never land an attack and do a single point of damage.
Yeah, let's remember to do that to Chris sometimes, to make his nightmare come true.
Yep, can't wait.
They also adjusted the protection fighting style. It's been improved. They didn't say what.
Yeah,
I liked it. I liked it the way it was. Like, it worked great.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way it was. If they just made it better, sure, that's great. But how do they make it better? Because so far,
what does that mean?
Better, I haven't liked.
Yeah.
So overall, I think the fighter mostly got a glow up. They gave it some extra stuff. I think that's pretty good. I think it'll feel better to be a fighter now.
Yep, they power creeped it up a little bit,
to
go along with all the other power creep that's going to come.
So moving into the subclasses, because I think that's where the core changes for the fighter really occurred. Like for some other classes, I think a lot of the core changes were on the non-subclass side, but I think for the fighters, all the core changes were really on the subclass side. You got notes on Battlemaster?
Battlemaster is mostly the same. They did say that they have changed some of your maneuvers. They weren't real specific on it, and then they brought in a bunch of maneuvers from Tasha's.
I will say this. Maybe I've been playing it wrong, but you can do multiple maneuvers throughout your turn. Right?
Potentially, yes.
As long as you land an attack, you can use multiple maneuvers. I always felt like that kind of fell in the same problem that they had with the Paladin, where like you just kind of crit fish and wait for that one big hit, use your big level smite, destroy everything, call it a day. You
can only use one maneuver per attack.
Right. But when you have multiple attacks,
yes, you could potentially use multiple maneuvers on each attack.
So here's just a short story. When I was playing Thaladred at a AL game, I don't remember. I think I was using a halberd or something like that, and whatever the scenario was, I had a bonus action attack. Okay, so I ran in there to fight the werewolf by myself. I hit it, and then I knocked it prone with my maneuver. Okay, and then I hit it again, and I used to knock prone again with the second attack. Even though he was already prone, I still get the extra damage. And then I had the bonus action attack, which I then used to knock prone a third time, which again wasn't to make it knock prone, it was just basically to add the extra damage. So at the end of the day, I did something like 68 damage plus strength on this big boss character. Took it well below bloodied, and that was just my turn at the very beginning of the combat. And I kind of felt like ever since then that Battlemasters having multiple maneuvers during a turn kind of breaks it in a lot of ways. I kind of wish they would have pulled that back and just made maneuvers better.
You're still losing you're spending your dice to do that.
But you get them all back on a short rest. So you just force the party to take a short rest after that encounter.
Ask how many warlocks how well that works.
Oh, I mean, it works really great for me, because I'm like, hey, I need to take a short rest here.
And we're moving on.
Yeah, now.
Like, good luck.
I'll say this here's because each thing generally adds a D8 until you're really high level. So all of your 3 attacks there added less than 1 standard paladin smite.
Oh yeah, but I mean,
So
that's what it's the equivalent.
you were effectively a less good paladin.
That's fair. Like I said, that was my one experience with it where I just felt like I ruined the encounter for everybody because I just knocked that boss on its ass.
Nah,
And
I don't. I think it's fine because we played in a game where with a fighter, a battle master, and a paladin, and the battle master just mostly felt ineffective because he would go in, use his 3 attacks, and be like, "Yeah, I use a technique on every one and do a bunch of damage." The paladin would smite once and be like, "Well, I did twice the damage the fighter did with 1 hit. I'm gonna attack again now."
I never had the problem because I always played Battle Master as the protector, as the tank, So I always took like the trip attack, the disarming attack, and the reaction attack, and then I also picked a protection fighting style, picked shield mastery and stuff like that. So I would basically build my guy out to always just be in the way, and that's what I like. And then again, that it's a very me thing, just to play a class that likes just to be in the way. I don't have to deal with big damage. That's what the rogue was for. That's what the weight mage is for. That's what the paladin's for. And I don't care personally that I'm not doing the big numbers, but as long as I can piss everybody off and make them attack me instead, I'm happy. You know. So
so in a nutshell, the battle master isn't really changing. It's just getting.
They did make one moderately substantial change though with the know your enemy skill.
They just expanded it, really.
Well, no. First off, they got rid of the requirement for the 1 minute observation, which that was always ridiculous. Nobody's ever going to stand there for a minute observing the enemy to figure stuff out.
The amount of times you could pull that off was
never. Yeah. Then there's the fact they actually streamlined it some because it used to be that you could learn certain information about an enemy's capabilities compared to your own. The DM tells you if the creature's equal, superior, or inferior in regard to 2 of the following characteristics. And apparently what they're doing with it now is it will reveal immunities, resistances, and vulnerabilities. Now, if this is standard, what we've seen with 5e vulnerabilities, the answer will always be there are none. So my hope is that if they threw that in there, maybe they're going to start adding vulnerabilities to monsters. If you change, because generally monsters, longtime players, I'm going to know what it's immune to or resistant to or vulnerable to. But if maybe things are changing up. We'll have to wait and see when the monster manual comes out. So,
but I think the idea to be able to reveal vulnerabilities will be nice if you have more monsters that have some.
Yeah, like generally, I still think it's a rather weak ability, but it's still a million times better than what it was.
See, I've used it to great effect multiple times, and a lot of it is I would kick in the door and taunt the boss to like start monologuing, and I would actually sit there with my clock and just wait for the minute, and then when the DM came around, it's like, hey, that took 3 minutes. I used my know the enemy feature, and I would always get some data out of it, which was always nice. Usually what I got out of it was like, how many hit points or AC or something like that. Something irrelevant that you can always figure out anyways.
Yeah, I absolutely detest the idea of you being able to know how many hit points a monster has.
I agree.
Because
an arbitrary.
That number right there, that fluctuates, man. If you're fighting my big boss monster and you were able to kill it in 2 rounds, by God, I want a 3rd round. That number might change.
I don't mind stuff where like
that is a style difference too.
Is it bloodied or not? I think those kind of things are fine. Like, oh, okay, I can tell if it's above or below 50% of its hit points.
Yeah,
that's still abstract enough.
A side note: bloodied is not back for 5e revised.
That's fine.
Which I really think they need to bring that back.
I don't hate it. I just don't think they need to bring it back.
I love abilities that trigger on becoming bloodied. That's amazing. I love abilities that trigger on losing all your hit points. I think that's amazing. I think that opens design space for monsters drastically, and they need to bring it back because of that.
No, that alone. That's very World of Warcraft. That's very video game-esque.
No, it's not. It's built in there. There are monsters that currently have it, but they say when the monster reaches half of its hit points. No, just say when the monster is bloodied.
That's shit they added much later. Like 5e did not have that in the beginning. That's some. I don't remember Mordenkainen's or whenever they started adding that kind of stuff. I'm not a fan of that.
It was about the first Mordenkainen book where they started bringing that in because all the Duergar hammerers had critical spots that you could hit for massive damage that never got used and things like that. That's when they started bringing it in, but that's still early 5th edition.
I don't know. It's just sort of lazy. You give the monster the ability, or don't give it the monster. Don't give it the ability when it hits half hit points.
No, it triggers an effect. It doesn't like a new ability. It just triggers something.
You call it what you want.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, let's go to the champion, because that actually had a lot of changes.
The champion did. The champion is still the I'm new, play this class. I think I'm trying to remember the champion. I mostly ignore the champion since it's never something I'm gonna play or know anyone that's gonna play.
I just ignore the fighters. I've been bored through this whole conversation.
They have a higher crit range than anybody else, which is
they get crit. That was always their thing. They get crit range, and I don't know. I ignored the champion. I really don't. I didn't take any notes there because I have no interest in the champion.
I can read what's on D&D Beyond about it. The champion is still all about critical hits with some added bonuses. Remarkable Athlete has been brought to level 3 and now gives you advantage on initiative rolls and strength athletic checks. You also get access to a new feature at level 10 called Heroic Warrior, which gives you heroic inspiration whenever you start your turn without it. So
I like it.
Yeah, I don't know what most of that means. I'd have to actually look up.
The heroic inspiration lets you reroll a die.
Yeah, I figured that because it's inspiration, but yeah. That sounds basically like it already was. They just might have cleaned it up a little.
Yeah, champion's still championing.
Yeah, champion is still championing. I think it's good. Coming from Baldur's Gate 3 with how broken the champion was, I hope that they didn't bring over some of the super awesome advantage problems that it had in like that video game.
Well, not being able to take 17 actions in one turn, I don't think it'll be a problem.
Well, it was just like they can't. They have here, it says when the champion is surprised, they just have disadvantage on initiative. Is that a rule book change, or is that just the subclass change?
I have no idea.
Because if it's just the champion that gets disadvantage on initiative instead of being surprised, that's pretty big. Because surprise rounds just murder people.
Well, they changed how surprise works.
Yeah, so if it's a surprise, it's basically anyone. It just has disadvantage on initiative instead of you lose your first turn. Then I guess it kind of negates it with the champion because you always have advantage on initiative, so it kind of means you're never surprised. Essentially, you're just less surprised, I guess. I don't know. But having advantage on initiative as a base class feature has always been really good, no matter what class you're playing.
Yep.
Having the heroic inspiration automatically is, I think, going to be a pretty big thing with the changes to heroic inspiration. Like I said, you get to reroll any die now, and so it doesn't have to be your attack roll. It can be a damage die or something along those lines. So it does scale up that fighter's damage, especially if he's using like a great axe. Probably not a great sword, but if you have a great axe and you get to reroll 1s and 2s, essentially, that's gonna be pretty good. And they also, the death saving throws, they get back up on 18 through 20. That counts as a crit on their death saves instead of just 20, which is pretty awesome, but it's level 18, so no one will ever use it.
Yeah. Well, it's level 18, and then at level 18, getting up with 1 hit point is not really an advantage.
No, it's really not. That's like the one thing I want from all my fighters, be able to get up, from death save. But so Eldritch Knight, the only note that I really saw here is that it retained most of its core abilities.
So Eldritch Knights, the cool thing they did was they removed the restriction on your spell selection.
Okay.
So you are no longer restricted for most of your spells being like, I think it was Abjuration and Evocation. You can now just, you get to pick whatever spells you want with your limited number of spells. and they changed the way its war magic was. So when you take the attack action, you can just replace one of your attacks with a cantrip instead of being able to have to use like, oh, okay, if you cast a cantrip, you can use a bonus action to make an attack.
Yeah,
So
it says
that's actually pretty potent because
well, they did it because they gave it to what's that sword wizard spells?
Blade Singers.
Blade Singers could already do it, and it was
So everyone played the whole idea of the booming blade and green flame blade wrong because you were using the cantrip, and the cantrip lets you make a melee attack. It's not you're using your attack action to make an attack, and the green flame blade was triggering off of that. So in this case, with the Eldritch Knight, it goes the way basically people have been playing it, where I'm taking my attack action and I'm using this cantrip as green flame blade, and still doing the
it
attack.
actually reads the cantrip as part of the action to cast the spell. You make a weapon attack, so it's taking your full action to cast that one thing instead of being able to attack multiple times, which made it less good for kind of gish classes.
And a lot of people just went, no, it just replaces one action. So
yeah,
that's
and they're kind of
this war magic is basically getting to what people have already been doing, and or have interpreted that ability for a while now, which is, I think, good overall. Because now I don't have to explain it and have the person be super pissed off that he thought he broke the game with green flame blade and got to make 9 attacks with it. Like, no, you only get 1. You don't get any extra attacks.
Yeah,
because you're using a cantrip, you're not making an attack.
And
so
then
I do like that.
They did do improved war magic is you can replace 2 attacks to cast a level 1 or 2 spell,
which seems more or less worthless.
I mean, if that keeps scaling up, where you can then replace 3 attacks and get a level 3 spell,
it does not.
Well, then that sucks.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of circumstances where I would be attacking, because this is when you're attacking. So when am I going to be attacking where I would instead want to, as a fighter, replace 2 of those attacks with a level 2 spell? I guess maybe it might be cool to, depending on what I'm find, to cast, hold person and then make your next attack an auto crit. Maybe.
Can you do the attack? Can you replace your first attack with a cantrip, and then cast a spell?
Unclear as of right now.
Okay.
My assumption would be no, though.
So, like, if you can do what you're saying right there, replace. Let's say you have 3 attacks, replace 2 attacks with hold person.
It's unclear. So it depends on how they write it up. Because right now it just says, okay, with improved war magic, you can replace 2 attacks to cast a level 1 or 2 spell. War magic already gives you the ability to place 1 of your attacks with a cantrip. So unless they clarify, theoretically you could say, okay, I cast hold person and then I cast green flame blade.
Yeah, but I think the base rule of you can't cast. Well, you could cast a cantrip with a level spell. So yeah.
So
that's why, the leveled spell plus it's still leveled spell plus cantrip, and because you're not having to use actions, you're using your attacks to cast them.
Now, mind you, you're still casting a shitty 2nd level spell at level 11, so it still seems mostly useless. But
I mean, the only thing I can think of is like you hit somebody, they die, and everyone else is too far away from you, so you're like, all right, fuck it, whatever, magic missile.
Yeah.
Like that's the only scenario I can think of where it's nice flexibility. Especially if you're trying to keep something on somebody.
It may be with the spells, we'll see if they've redesigned some of the spells or added in some new spells that maybe there was something in mind with this, but maybe it's just a flexibility thing. I feel like mostly you're going to use the first one. You're going to pretty much always booming blade or green flame blade with one of your attacks.
Now, if you can cast multiple cantrips, it's going to be really broke.
Yeah, I don't know if it's. Yeah, we'll have to see how it's written. I assume they're going to let you
3 attacks. You can do 3 green flame blades in a turn.
I'm assuming it's going to be a once per turn. You can replace one of your attack, but we'll see. We'll see how it's written. Yeah, I agree.
No,
3 green blades, like always. I no longer attack. I only cast green flame blade now.
Yeah, like I love battle mages, and I love Eldritch Knights. I just never play them because they've always been so weak in comparison to, and like in 5e's cases, either the champion or the battle master. I would play either of them over the Eldritch Knight. Most of it was the school restriction. Most of it was just like you don't get everything. You don't get enough spells to make it worthwhile. And you can become a really good tank. Where you can cast like shield on yourself and get counterspell eventually and shit like that. But like what's the point when AC seems to like always be king anyways,
Yeah,
cool,
I
get
think
to cast
opening it up
shield,
will
but
help. But most of the time, like if I want to play a Gish, like I'm either going to play a Blade Singer because you can get really high AC, make a bunch of attacks, and be a full-on wizard, which is the best class in the game, or I'm going to play a Paladin.
Yep, pretty much. Blade Singers are still broken if they bring that back.
All right,
moving on.
Yeah, the Psy Warrior from
They
Tasha's
basically said they didn't
everything.
change it from Tasha's, which means it's a poor man's battle master.
Yeah, which means and anyone who tells you they have psychic powers in D&D 5e are just incorrect.
Yeah, it is a poor man's battle master. I am playing one currently, and that is how I feel about it. It's a less versatile, less useful battle master, less interesting. So
that's sad.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the Paladin.
Paladins are great.
Enough said, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Rogue.
No, okay, no. I'll talk about the Paladin a little bit. Let's just go ahead and hit the big thing. Is that smites? All divine smites are now a spell that you cast as a bonus action after you hit something.
Okay.
So
that how makes did it really mechanically change it?
Mechanically, a Paladin could smite anytime they hit a creature. There was no action reaction. It was just when you hit something, you could smite it. So if you could attack multiple times, you could smite multiple times, which made the Paladin kind of definitively the best warrior in the game because you were definitely going to hit and you could always do more damage than your rogues, your fighters. You were just the best single target damage dealer in the game, hands down.
For as long as you had spell slots.
As long as you had spell slots and you had a pretty decent number, so you were gonna be good. You were always gonna out damage even battle masters or any fighter.
Yeah, and Jay, you've been playing a Paladin Celasta, which essentially is
it's straight up a Paladin. Yeah, that's what it is.
So I mean, how do you feel then? Because I haven't played a Paladin at all, so
I think it's a good change. Honestly, it's definitely a nerf.
Yes.
But Paladins were so far overpowered to start with. Cutting that back just seems like a good move.
Yeah.
You're also you're going to run out of spell slots a lot, or not as quick either, which is nice.
Yeah, and what they've tried to do with this too, the other changes they've made have been trying to kind of reemphasize that the Paladin can do other things than smite. So it seems like they've tried to prop up the non-smite aspects of the Paladin. You have more uses of your Channel Oath.
Mm-hmm.
I like that actually because I barely ever use my Channel Oaths in Celasta because I get one use of it.
That's what one of the reasons they're saying is the Paladins almost never use them because you get one and you have multiple options. You always got to feel like you got to wait for just exactly the right moment to use it.
Yep.
So now you get more uses of your Channel Oath. You do get a free use of the Divine Smite, without using a spell slot once. Once you get Fine Steed, you can cast that without using a spell slot.
Yeah,
so
let's pause right there. That is absolutely the best fucking change because the whole idea that I had to choose Fine Steed and prepare it, and it just wasn't always just there, annoyed me. For Paladins, it annoyed me for Paladins. I wasn't even playing one. Like you should always have that, and I'm so glad they brought that in.
Yep.
Yeah. In fact, the last time I played a Paladin, I never used that because it was almost never worth preparing that instead of the other spells available to me.
Okay, hold on real quick. So I got to piss wipe off real quick. I'm looking on the D&D Beyond at the Paladin changes, and the first one that pops up is Lay on Hands is now a bonus action.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that's good.
That's
because,
fine.
again, Lay on Hands was always that. Was it ever worth to use your full action to lay on hands somebody?
Yes,
during combat?
I've done it many times playing a Paladin, at least on Celeste I have. It sucks that I lose my turn, but if I can hit somebody with 50 points of healing.
Oh, I never did. I maybe I'm a bad paladin, but I never did it. It was always I will heal people up after combat.
Well, sometimes in that game, at least you sometimes don't have a choice.
Yeah,
no, I like that change because it's not like it's free healing like the potion is. Okay, and this one's a little bit different. You're opening up the flexibility of the paladin. So you've taken away them from always being able to smite all the time. And so now you've changed that from, okay, I can still attack, and instead of smiting this turn with my bonus action, I can now lay on hands with my bonus action.
I mean,
I'm okay with that.
So you get 5 times your level in healing as a paladin. A potion is going to heal you roughly 5 points if it's just a basic one. So every level, you're effectively just gaining a potion that you can now bonus action heal yourself with.
I am fine
and
with
you
that.
don't have a problem with it.
Yes, I'm
What
fine
now?
with
What if there are multiple paladins?
Then you have too many paladins.
What if everyone plays a paladin?
Well, then
you're playing a very specific campaign setting called All Paladins.
You have the perfect party, is what you have at that point.
Yeah,
Gone Wild Paladin edition.
But yeah, So Find Steed, you always have it prepared, and you can cast it once a day without using a spell slot, which is great because it's such an iconic theme ability for the paladin, and now you never have an excuse to not have it, and you can use your steed.
Now, if you're gonna mount it and ride it everywhere, fuck you. But anyways.
But they talked about how the paladin's kind of abjure foe thing. A bunch of different subclasses had some version of like, I channel my oath to, basically turn certain types of enemies.
Mm-hmm.
So they just turned that into a base paladin feature that all of them will get as one of their channel divinity options. And
the paladin in my current game has dreadful presence or whatever it is when he uses his channel oath ability, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it basically makes all the monsters have disadvantage that are lower level than him or lower CR than him. The bigger monsters don't ever seem to be affected by it, and it's just frightened. So it just lasts a couple turns, and that's it. In our game last night, he did it. Ran into a room full of thugs, stood right in front of them, and was like, "All right, it's just me and you." They were all frightened of him. They failed every time they were going to be frightened of him, but the big bad that was in the room didn't. So, I kind of like this. Frightened is kind of the weird condition, but like that's what a paladin is to me. Going back to like Diablo 2, that old artwork of Diablo, where he's like choking out the sorcerer and the archers behind a pillar and the barbarians like on the ground, like dead and bleeding out. But there you see the paladin like walking in with his divine aura around him. Like even Diablo's like, oh shit. Like I liked it. Like that fits the fantasy of the class, and I think that works. So I'm happy.
They talked about the kind of cleared up aura, the paladin's aura. Everything that a paladin has, every kind of aura that they get it's a single aura, and it just upgrades with the various different features that either the core paladin or your subclasses grant you.
You no longer have an aura that's 10 feet and another one that's 15 feet.
Yeah, they wanted to clear that, especially because one of the core classes now is the Oath of Glory that gave you that wonky like one that was a different size, and so you had different sized auras, and it was just a weird thing to have to play with to remember like which one is which. So all of them just upgrade anything that does your aura just upgrades your current aura, and it's all one the same with all the same area of effect.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy with all these changes. Like, I get it that the paladins can't do those continuous smites over and over and over and over again.
And that's what
but
people are real mad about.
but like, okay, so last night they were fighting Xanathar, the big bad of big bads. Really, when you think about it, they're probably the biggest, baddest beholder that's been around for a while. The paladin crit used a third level smite, did half his hit points and damage in that one attack. Like, I get it that you can hit 5 times and waste five spell slots to do 5 smites, but that's not where the fun of the paladin is. For me, it's that crit. You get that crit, and you got that one spell slot you've been saving, and you just like, okay, blarp, and then here's 17d9 radiant damage on your face. Like,
Yeah.
like
I mean,
that's the cool part.
Yeah,
I agree. I think every paladin will always save at least one spell slot for a crit.
Yeah.
And then they'll use their other ones kind of, once a turn as they have them periodically if they're fighting something that's worth it. Yeah, they'll use the smite and you'll still do plenty of damage.
I think the issue comes up is that if you have multiple attacks in your turn and the first one hits, okay, and you smite on that turn, and the second one hits and that one crits, you don't get to do that fun thing.
Sucks to be you.
Yep. Sucks to be you. It. Well, you don't know. I mean, it's always a 5% chance, but you don't know. So, like, I don't know if that's something that I would want to change a little bit. Like, okay, you crit, you get a free smite, but it doesn't get doubled, or something along those lines. Just to kind of like make sure that Paladin maintains that fun. I crit. Here's my smite. I don't want them. I don't want them to lose that.
Don't ever smite on the first attack. Smite on the second one.
Yeah, but you just miss the second one. Then
if I'm a DM and I'm playing, I'll judge it. I'll judge it by the situation. If they're in a dramatic fight and it would feel good for them to say, "Hey, can I smite on that second hit instead of the first one?" And it feels great for the story and it feels right. Sure, why not? You can move your smite to the second hit, if it feels appropriate. Yeah. And I think that's a call that any decent, dungeon master will make when it feels right.
Yeah, and if they do what a lot of players I see do in AL, where they just make all their attacks and then try to figure out everything afterwards, is like, all right, they died in the first attack, so the additional 4 attacks you put into that guy were irrelevant. Oh, can I move over there and attack him? No.
Roll them separately, then you can.
Yeah.
Right. But like I said, like it's going to be a weird thing. I don't want paladins to lose that crit feeling. I like that for them. I don't know where it's going to land with these changes with the smites, with being in a bonus action. So I don't know where it's going to land exactly. As long as they can do something special with the crit, I'm happy.
I think it'll be fine. Sure, you're going to have less power gamers wanting to play paladins because it's the best class. But people who want to play paladins are still going to play paladins.
Yeah.
The class functions fine. You just can't smite multiple times in a turn. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep. And you got some added versatility, so you'll be fine. Do we want to go over the subclasses?
Yeah, because the first note I have here is that all subclasses have received quote unquote fun updates.
Okay. I'll try to go over them in kind of a quick rundown so we don't take too much time. The core classes are going to be Oath of Devotion, Oath of the Ancients, Oath of Vengeance, and Oath of Glory. Those are the ones coming into the they talk about Devotion first, which was the least played subclass, and even though it is the kind of the most paladin, the standard kind of knight in shining armor paladin. Because one of their big channel divinity thing was Sacred Weapon, which bumped up your damage with some radiant damage on your weapon attacks, but it cost an action to use. So every fight you would have to go into and be like, well, I spend my first action doing nothing, but turn my glow sword on.
And now Sacred Weapon is part of the action.
Now it's part of the attack. When you attack, you can just say you're activating it, and it goes.
Just like Reckless Attack. Amazing how that works.
Yeah. just like Reckless Attack. You could just say, okay, I'm activating this on this hit, and we're going.
Okay.
So, they replaced Purity of Spirit, which I think was the 15th level ability.
Okay.
Oh, let me try to look here.
It says Purity of Spirit feature has been replaced with a new feature called Smite of Protection. When you use Divine Smite, you and your allies in your aura are given half cover for a limited time.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, it used to be just you were always under the effects of protection from evil and good.
Okay.
So
I mean,
it was, which is
that works.
good, but it's only good for you. And this is kind of more of the devotion being the kind of defender of your party, not just yourself.
Right.
So.
What the hell is Holy Nimbus?
That's their Holy Nimbus is that the 20th level ability. It also used to cost inaction to activate. So at the very highest level, if you wanted to use your Sacred Sword and your Holiness, you spent 2 turns powering up to actually be ready to fight.
So it's not a cloud you can ride?
It is not, unfortunately, a cloud that you can ride.
Then why they call it Nimbus?
I don't know. Because it's a Nimbus, man. Not cumulonimbus. It was just an aura of sunlight.
All right, well, Nimbus is a cloud. You get to ride them. You have to be pure of heart.
Sure.
That's why Vegeta can't ride them.
That's that's Oath of Devotion. Oath of Glory. They made Peerless Athlete last for an hour instead of 10 minutes, so you get your bonuses to athletics and acrobatics and stuff last longer because it's mostly something you use in like non-combat and exploration stuff anyway, so why not let it last a significant amount of time?
Fair enough.
And Aura of Alacrity, which was their cool aura that allowed people to boost their speed. And it used to just be if you were within 5 feet of them, and then eventually 10 feet of them. Now it just is part of your aura, so it's 10 feet and then 30 feet. And the neat thing is now you get that speed boost as long as during your turn you pass through their aura. So it really is just you're a speed booster effect. If somebody just walks through your aura, they add 10 feet to their speed for that turn.
That just makes the math a lot easier.
Yes.
Makes the math easier. Just speed boost.
Yeah. Walk through it. You get an extra. You can move 10 more feet. Cool.
So the question I have for you, Kristian, is: are you going to play a paladin called Lucio?
I'm not hearing that noise.
It says all paladins have their oath spell list vetted. Same with the cleric and warlock. I guess they're just retooling them, figuring out which one has which.
I think they've mentioned that they changed up some of the spells on the paladin oath lists. They weren't specific about what has changed, but they just said some of them they kind of revisited and made changes to the spell list that you get.
Okay.
So we'll find out what that is when we get it.
All right. Oath of the Ancients.
Oath of the Ancients. This one did receive a little bit of a nerf. They said they made the aura warding used to just give everyone in your aura just half damage from spells.
Okay.
Now it is everyone gets resistance to necrotic, radiant, and psychic damage.
Okay, so they pulled that back a little.
Yeah. It'll be less effective on a lot of spells, but it will also apply to things that aren't spells now. So
yeah,
anytime you're fighting undead or things like that, it'll probably feel pretty good because
the damage types make sense too. Necrotic is undead, holy for radiant, and psychic is abominations a lot of times, things like that.
And that's exactly what they talked about.
So it says here is that Ode to the Ancients is intended to be about protecting people from foes beyond the material plane. So you can protect from necrosis, which is associated with the negative planes, radiant from the positive planes, psychic from the far realms. Radiant isn't always good. It can be taken to be more like radioactive, which is not necessarily benevolent. Just like necrotic isn't always malevolent. So I can see that, but then they kind of kind of almost pigeonholes them, and like you only get a lot of use out of them if you're playing something in a different non-material plane thing, But I'm okay with subclasses having that little bit of uniqueness to them, Like if the rogue has something called Vampire Killer subclass, and you're playing it on the Forgotten Realms, and you're not getting a lot of use out of it, I'm sorry. But when you play Ravenloft and you're playing Vampire Killer subclass, you're going to get a lot of use out of it. So I'm okay with that, but
I love things like that. Like 3rd edition was all about that. The prestige classes, every one of them was unique to what that was going to do, and a lot of them were very setting specific. Like you could literally play a guard who guarded tombs for elven elders. That was your whole prestige class.
Yeah, I'd love to see them actually make campaign books that had kind of campaign specific subclasses that will feel good there, but might not feel good anywhere else. But
I mean,
that's another.
They tried with Dragon. They tried with Dragonlance and failed miserably.
Yeah. But
in general, I did with my Christmas module where I made subclasses that were just for Christmas.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. No, in general, I think this is good. I mean, it might pigeonhole you a little bit, but I think you still find plenty of things that deal necrotic, radiant, or psychic damage, so it'll still feel plenty good in a lot of situations.
I mean, I usually build my fighter to be very anti-undead, and so when the campaign doesn't have a lot of undead, kind of a little bit useless. But you know what? I can still punch things really hard, and I can still annoy things and make them hit me. So
you're still a fighter.
The other two things with Oath of the Ancients, Nature's Wrath, which is their channel divinity thing, they increase the range, so it's a lot easier to use and feels better. And then their Undying Sentinel, which is the thing that used to let them basically go to 1 hit point instead of 0 hit points. Now they return with a decent number of hit points, so it doesn't feel dumb to use or punishing, because a lot of those I go to 1 hit point mostly just felt punishing because you weren't really ever gonna do anything. It just meant, well, all right, but the next attack kills me.
Yeah, you get 3 times. Three times your paladin level and hit points back. So
and a lot of it too is like because they kind of pseudo mess up the verbiage too with a lot of things. Like if this takes you to 0 hit points, you die. If this takes you to 0 hit points, you get disintegrated, things like that. And it would protect you against those kind of things. So maybe it's meant to kind of be just a better version of that. I don't know.
I would want to see the wording on that, because the wording for something like disintegrate would have to be very specific.
Well, it's like it's like it evolved from the monster manual with like beholders to traps were a little different, especially in Tomb of Annihilation, to Mordenkainen's multiverse books, where they were like, you have to go to unconscious beyond 0 status before this thing to take effect and kill you.
Yeah.
So
what I was saying, so what I'm sitting here reading on D&D Beyond, where the 2014 Oath of the Ancients Paladin would simply go to 1 hit point instead of 0. 2024 version instantly regains a number of hit points equal to 3 times your paladin level. So the initial wording for the 2014 version would actually not disintegrate you, because it says you would simply go to 1 hit point. Whereas the new one, you regain hit points. So it means you did hit 0, aka you got disintegrated.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah,
we'll have to see how it works. Yeah.
The actual wording is. But it does seem like that way it might actually, which I'd be kind of okay with. Disintegrate gets rid of you, but if just somebody stabs you with a sword, you stand back up like a Terminator.
Yep.
But last subclass for Paladins, Oath of Vengeance. Mostly the same. Vow of Enmity, which was your channel divinity that allows you to pick a target and have advantage on attacks against it for a minute. Instead of requiring any action or bonus action, it's just part of the attack.
That's smart, yeah.
And then their last of level, they just said Avenging Angel, and now instead of being an action, it's level 20. Will let you fly for an hour. Cool.
Yeah, but at level 20, you should probably have Boots of Flying already anyway. So
that's what I say. Level 20, I'll say okay, but mostly that's useless.
I just thought of a weird question. Okay, if there are magic horseshoes in D&D 5e that make your horse like move faster when you put all 4 of them on.
Yep.
If you have Boots of Flying, which are just 2 boots, but you still put them on a horse, but only 2 of its legs, because it has 4 legs, but you only have 2 boots. Does it still get the flying effect?
It wouldn't work because he
No.
doesn't have feet. He has hooves.
He doesn't have you can't properly wear boots, so you can't properly wear that magic item.
Well, magic items shrink and change shape to fit the user,
yes,
right?
but
it
would change to a foot, not to a hoof.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah.
Now, if you try to wear one boot, you just fly in a circle. So.
All right, Jay. I mean, we went through a fighter and paladin. We're a little bit over an hour. Do you want to go over class? Do you want to pick the next one?
Well, I was doing them in the order of the releases, and you guys got out of order. No, you didn't. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
We did fighter paladin.
I'm sorry. I thought it was fighter barbarian, then paladin. I had it wrong. So let's go over the barbarian.
Is that the one you want to talk about? I care about you.
No, we'll get to the stuff I want to talk about when we get to the stuff I want to talk about. Like I've played barbarians, I've played paladins. I don't play fighters. So.
All right. Let's go over the barbarian. That'll be the last one for this grouping.
Yeah, because we had to cover the subclasses and.
Important.
Yeah.
I think they're important.
I think the subclasses are important, but I think subclasses could have all been kind of gone over on their own thing, because not all the subclasses were important to go over.
Yeah, the ones that get changes or things, and it'd have to be substantial changes for it to matter. But anyway.
All right, barbarian.
I don't know if Kristian has notes on this. If not, then I'll just go off of D&D Beyond.
Only note I have for barbarian is this is already the best class in the game. We didn't make any changes to it. Enjoy your barbarians and 5e revised.
As somebody who's played a barbarian for a long time, it is definitely not. It is a good class. It's solid. Doesn't need a lot of changes, but not the best.
Okay, so for barbarians, like all the other martial classes, they get weapon mastery. So, hooah!
Hoorah!
They made keeping a rage up easier. If there's no nearby enemy to attack, you can keep your rage going by forcing it to make a saving throw. You can also simply keep burning your bonus action to keep your rage up.
I'm okay with using a bonus action to keep your rage running, but I was never a fan of people like, hey, shit, I got to keep my rage going. Let me punch you real quick. Or, hey, can you punch me? Like,
that was the weird thing that kept happening. Somebody would just be like, yeah, punch me, or I'm going to punch you. And you were already just kind of exploiting it to keep it going. So you might as well just give them the mechanic to let them keep it going instead of finding a stupid reason to do it.
I've always hated that there's a mechanic behind it anyway. It should be you rage, you get it for 1 minute, done.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, like, you remember, actually, do you remember the new Star Wars movies?
Why wouldn't I? I've seen them multiple times.
Force Awakens, when Kylo Ren was basically fighting Rey in the snow, and he basically was trying to keep his rage going, and he just started punching the shit out of his...
Yeah.
I love that. Like, that flavor is great, I didn't mind barbarians smacking themselves and doing, strength damage to keep their rage running, that didn't bother me. What bothered me was punching other players, having other players punch them, finding a commoner in the street that's basically going to be the fucker that's going to keep my rage going, Yeah,
so it should have just been. Should have always just been. You get it for a minute, move on.
Yeah, I like the bonus action part of it. I don't think I'll ever make someone make a save.
Yeah, so you regain an expended use of it after each short rest too, which I like because there is nothing worse than running out of rages as a barbarian.
Yeah. Any of the classes that had a key, like this is your thing that makes you your class, like if you don't have it, it feels like, why am I playing this class if I can't do my key thing? So yeah, rage is what you're supposed to be doing every combat. Not having it is kind of dumb.
Yeah, because there have been many combats where I had to negotiate. Okay, I've got 1 rage left, and we are not at the big boss fight. This might be a tough fight, so let's try to navigate this without getting killed.
Yeah. I do love the change to danger sense.
Yeah, I think it just cleans it up and makes it easier to not have to like finagle weird arguments of, well, can I see that, or technically can I see it? I love that it is just now spider sense. You get the tingle.
Jay, do you remember when I had one of my players on who was DMing for us for a little bit, and you're talking about danger sense and specifically where I didn't give him danger sense because he couldn't see it coming?
Yeah, vaguely.
Sorry, Mike. So the only way you don't get danger sense now is as long as you're incapacitated. I didn't mind the blinded or incapacitated side of things. Definitely didn't make sense, but I'm okay.
No, I like that it is literally just kind of a sixth sense now. It's not relying on you seeing it at all. You don't need to be seeing. You're just in tune with the natural world, or your rage, or however you want to flavor it or subscribe it. But you got your spider sense. That's what it is. It's spider sense.
I took the jet. Everything's moving real slow. I'm moving real fast.
I see the Matrix.
Yep.
Yeah. So third level, they got the. I think this is basically. Well, no, they said the name is the same from Tasha's, but they actually changed it. You get primal knowledge. This is the weird one. So this allows, while you're raging, you can make certain ability checks on certain skills with strength instead of whatever it would normally be for the strength for those abilities. Some of them seem to make sense, like things like intimidation and persuasion. I can see a raging barbarian be able to make an argument to some creatures that that makes sense, instead of using charisma. If I'm using the fact that I am literally frothing at the mouth and I'm this Conan guy that is picking up a a whole like table, I could be persuaded to listen to that guy.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this last week on the podcast. So not a whole lot more to go over on that.
Yeah, I'll just say it remains to be seen exactly what skills they give it to you, and for some of them that makes sense, and all right, that's fine.
I did post on the Facebook, our Grumpy Dungeon Master Facebook page, the using charisma for athletics argument.
Yeah.
And I'm 100% for that. If you have the charisma of Bruce Campbell and you're playing at my table and you impress me with some kind of witty one-liner and you want to jump out the window, I will give you charisma athletics. But all those conditions must be met. The RP must be on point.
And you must be Bruce Campbell.
Yeah. Bruce Campbell just gets it by default.
Yeah. 7th level, they get Instinctive Pounce, which is you can move essentially when you activate your rage. As part of it, you can move half your movement speed.
I don't mind that.
Am I the only one that doesn't like the primal aspect of barbarians and their rage? Why can't I just have adrenaline flowing through me and be the Hulk? I don't need to have an attunement to nature and animals and shit for my rage to go on. I just want to get mad and punch things.
Yeah, so I've been running the that superhero game Valiant Universe, and it doesn't actually have a list of powers. You get to make up your old powers, and you just write in the name for whatever you want it to be. So you need something like that for this. You don't want you don't want feral instinct. You want strongman power or something. Yeah,
and I think you could flavor it that way if you wanted to for your games. But I kind of see the classic kind of barbarian is kind of that attuned to the natural world as part of is an outsider and not part of a civilization. And so I kind of get it makes sense for standard kind of D&D settings. And
but I get that for the barbarian in a general barbarian sense, but rage as a mechanic, I don't necessarily attune that to barbarian. I do for 5e, of course, but in other games, the barbarian is just the fighter, and it's just a more natural based fighter.
This is in other games. This is D&D.
Yep.
Right, no, I get that. So. But I'm just saying, it's like I like rage a lot. I'm very big fan of the Incredible Hulk. The Incredible Hulk has zero attunement to the natural world and shit. So, like, I don't know. That's just a me thing. I just wish they had some more usage of rage that wasn't so hippie.
Well,
lack of a better term.
So level 9, you get Brutal Strikes. This is replacing Brutal Critical, which I'm glad, because Brutal Critical was dumb. I don't tend to like anything that requires you to use a core feature requires you to get a critical hit, because that means that 90 to 95% of the time when you're not getting critical hits, you just don't have a class ability.
Yeah.
So I always prefer stuff that isn't
Paladins.
active, or you forget about it even when you do it sometimes because it comes up so rarely. I always prefer active abilities, things that is, okay, I choose to do this. So they are giving Barbarians Brutal Strike. It lets you, when you use Reckless Attack, you can forego the advantage on Reckless Attack to deal more damage when you hit and do an additional effect. They mentioned the additional effects would be things like pushing an enemy back, then allowing you to move up next to them, and then slowing enemies down. There will be some other options that they didn't go over, but
As
those were the
somebody, as
two things.
somebody who's played a lot of Barbarian in 5e, it better be substantial damage.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. They didn't mention
look,
it.
if you think about Great Weapon Master and Reckless Attack, you essentially get that negative to your attack roll, which negates the advantage from advantage to deal an extra 10 damage.
Because I always reckless unless I already just had advantage from some other resource or whatever.
Right.
I would never not reckless to get that advantage. So if that damage isn't the equivalent of that, like it has to be substantial, or the debuff has to be substantial. Otherwise, I would just not even.
This is one of those. In general, I like it better because relying on having to get a critical to use something is just random.
Yeah, and let me tell you, as long as I did play that character, I think we got up to like 14th level or something like that. I think I got brutal critical to trigger twice, maybe. Like it's so infrequent.
So, yeah, I think the damage should be good. I don't know what it will be. I hope that it's good, but I think almost anything would be better than brutal critical because you can use it more reliably. And you can kind of choose to know, well, this is a creature I probably want advantage to hit, or this is something that I would rather just deal some guaranteed damage to.
Oh, look, I'm fighting zombies. They have an 8 armor class. I'm not gonna.
I like if
I like the kind of the
brutal strike where they're giving up advantage to do something, broke through, let's say like immunities or broke through like resistances. I would like that because that fits the flavor a lot more too. Like you're hitting something so hard that you're affecting it on a fundamental psychic level, and your damage is changing.
We'll see what the effects are because they only mentioned the kind of push or slow, and they do say you get more options at higher level. Yeah. So we'll kind of depends to see what those are. I do kind of like the idea of pushing an enemy back and then closing the distance because that gives you that kind of option to like, well, I'm going to shove somebody off of my squishies and then I'm going to get up next to them so they can't just move right back into the spot.
So at the very least, we all agree brutal strike is a better choice than critical. So.
Yeah. How much better remains to be seen, and it remains to be seen whether even if it's better than brutal, if it's how often it's actually worth giving up that advantage.
Yep.
A lot of this harkens back to a lot of how when I was playing 4th edition, how it played.
I can't listen.
No, I'm saying in 4th edition there was a lot of different battlefield control, maneuverability, shifting players around, shifting monsters around, and it seems like with the weapon masteries, with pushing people, and all that stuff, they're kind of leaning more back to that, where they're trying to basically in the miniature combat world side of D&D. Yeah, you're going to be pushing people back and, like you said, taking up that space and making sure the squishies are okay. And that worked really well in 4th edition when you basically were required to play with minis. I wonder how much of the having to have minis or the representation of minis and a board versus just theater of the mind.
I mean, 5e's already built, so it expects you to be playing with minis anyway.
Yeah, I think they're going with the majority here. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't mind. Like I said, I really did enjoy a lot of the tactical miniature combat that 4E had. Like I really did enjoy that. I'm glad they're bringing it back because again, I enjoyed that. But I can definitely see where that's not a lot of people's cup of tea. And things like the brutal critical pushing and then moving and then shifting in.
I think most people who aren't into the miniature war game side of what D&D has become over the last few years, a lot of us are stepping away to other games that don't require that. So
That's fair.
Now that being said, I've got the D&D Beyond pulled up. I keep saying the D&D Beyond for whatever reason.
It's like the Facebook.
Yeah, the interwebs. So Brutal Strike you get at level 9, but I see Improved Brutal Strike at level 13 and Improved Brutal Strike at level 17. The level 13 reads, you get more options to inflict with your Brutal Strike feature, and level 17 reads, Brutal Strike now deals 2d10 damage, and you can use 2 different effects when you hit. So that would lead me to believe that it gives you an extra d10 for the level 9 and an effect. So
that's equivalent of Great Weapon Master, which is pretty much what they were already.
Yeah.
Doing.
Like that's that's decent enough damage. It's not a D6. You have the chance to do 10 points. So.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good amount of damage.
Also, I want to call out on D&D Beyond where they got that Drow Barbarian, like top notch there. I love that.
No, I haven't seen it.
You don't see a lot of Drow Barbarians.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
And then having a Drow Barbar, I'll put it in our podcast chat so we want to see it on the Discord. But like it's pretty sweet. Like you don't see a lot of Drow Barbarians, and you definitely don't see one with that like hole with the missing ear thing, which works on some people, doesn't work on others.
Yeah, there was if you read all the Driss novels, which I know you never have and never will, but there was a Drow. He was technically a fighter, but he was effectively a barbarian.
We all know the Driss novels have all the special Drow in their books.
Yes. Yeah, used a trident, etc.
Best books ever written.
Use a trident, had a lucky rabbit's foot.
They were quite good. At least some of them.
All right. So that's brutal. That's Brutal Strike. Looks to be a good improvement over Brutal Critical. They said Relentless Rage is improving. You get basically you bounce back with more HP, so you're less likely to just.
And that one does say is like when you drop to 0 hit points while your rage is active, you can instead heal for a number of hit points. You go twice your barbarian level. The key thing there is whether or not you actually hit 0 hit points, which will disintegrate you, or it's like you're about to. You can choose to heal instead.
Yeah, but in this case, this is the same as we were talking about earlier. I'm going to wait until that book is out to see what the actual wording on it is.
Yeah.
And then when I find out that Disintegrate works, that's all I'm using on people.
So, that's your Barbarian.
Barbarian subclass.
What was their weird epic boon? Oh, their epic boon at 19th level is Irresistible Offense. You can move your strength or dex up to 1, up to a maximum of 30. You also get the ability to overcome resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage with your attacks.
But it's at 19. If that was earlier, that would be amazing. But
I see
not
something
at 19.
Completely different. I see the level 20 as your limit for strength and con is now 25.
That's also level 20. This is an epic boon. Epic boon's kicking at 19.
No, I got that, but you said that it raises your limit of strength to 30.
Yeah,
and this
you choose a boon, and the boons are different things. But if you don't choose that boon, you still get the 20, which can let you go up to 25.
Okay.
It just means so it doesn't raise your strength to 30. It raises your strength or dex by 1, but it increases your maximum that it can raise it to is 30.
Sure.
And another thing we didn't really talk about during the player's handbook is they have rules from going from 20 to 30, which essentially is every level past 20, you get a new epic boon per level.
Which is literally exactly what the epic level handbook that came out on.
Which is literally exactly how the current DMG reads.
Yeah. Like, it was just here. You get epic boons at every other level or every 3 levels or something.
Current DMG.
Right. No one reads the current DMG. I didn't even fucking read it, and I know stuff is in it at least. I mean, come on.
I didn't read it as much as I wanted to, but all right. Do we want to go into subclasses?
Yes, because it's got my big thing. I do.
All right. This has got your big thing. So why don't you start us off then?
Path of the Totem Warrior is now Karlach's Path of the Wild Heart.
Is that why they changed it?
I don't know, but I would assume so.
It makes sense.
Because it was weird. Like there was Path of the Wild Heart, all right, which lets you draw primal powers from different animals. Okay, why did they call it Wild Heart in BG3? Why didn't they call it Path of the Totem Warrior? And it always confused me. And then I saw this change where it's like, oh no, yeah, we're calling that Totem Warriors now Path of the Wild Heart. I was like, that's because fucking Karlach had it that way.
Yeah, I don't think that's why, but we'll go with
my headcanon is reality, damn it.
Yeah,
it's more that I think the Laria team was privy to some of the changes that were coming, and this was one of them, and they went ahead with it.
I mean, they got Topple on the weapons, so yeah. I mean, a lot of the weapon mastery stuff is in BG3. Like you mentioned, like you wish more of it was, but a lot of it is. Like Topple is 1-for-1 with quarter staves and maces and shit. So
anyway, looking at the Path of the Wild Heart, the one thing that I see that's really big, and they're doing this with a lot of classes, and I actually like this. Instead of choosing an animal at level 3 and sticking to it through your campaign, you can swap out benefits pretty much every time you rage.
Just like Karlach could.
I know, right?
No, Karlach could swap it out when you leveled up. This is saying, hey, when you rage, you get to choose which one of these features you want to use, which I think is much cooler.
There's a lot of classes that are getting things like that. The wizard can, pick a different cantrip every time you rest, things like that. And that's good quality of life changes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We like flexibility.
Yeah, yes. I agree, because this being locked into the one thing kind of felt, and they mentioned the other thing is in the 2014 book, like all at each different tier where you got to make selections, they all had the same names. Like it was always the same 3 or 4 animals. And even though they tell you that you don't have to make the same choice, everyone kind of always felt like, well, shouldn't I choose the same one? Shouldn't I always, if I'm a bear barbarian, I have to be a bear barbarian all the way through?
And you can if you want to, and if it makes sense, do it.
But they changed up the name so that it wouldn't feel like you were supposed to.
Yeah.
They were guiding you. But mostly I think the big thing is what Jay said. Yeah. You get to kind of choose when you rage. You get the flexibility.
Okay. I like flexibility. Flexibility is great as long as it doesn't homogenize things. And it doesn't seem like we're reaching that point for any of these things.
Not with what we've talked about tonight.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So let's go for Path of the Zealot.
Okay.
Has transformed in its journey from Xanathars to the PHP. That's the only note that I have on it.
Okay.
Yeah. If you got something, Kristian, you go ahead. If not, I'll read what I got.
Yeah, go ahead, Jay. No, I don't.
I'm literally reading from the D&D Beyond.
Oh my.
the D&D Beyond.
Yes.
Yeah. They know what's up.
Yeah, originally introduced in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, this Radiant subclass has had a glow up. Its Warrior of the Gods feature now helps you stay alive by giving you a pool of healing dice you can use that you can roll as a bonus action rather than making it easier to bring you back from the dead. This is also reflected in the Rage of the Gods features, which replaces Rage Beyond Death and gives you a fly speed, damage resistances, and the ability to expand a use of your rage to prevent you and your comrades from dropping to 0 hit points.
All right, Jace. So I disliked the pool of healing dice as a bonus action, but I was okay with it with the Paladin, and I'm anti it with the healing potions. You understand why, though?
Because your logic is faulty.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Damn it.
No, this makes sense because this is your divine barbarian. This is your your religious zealot that is part of a religious order that is. So
yeah, I liked it better when he just didn't die. He just kept getting stabbed to death.
Well, I do. So there was something to be said.
That is better flavor, at least.
Yeah.
For that that was the high level feature. But the third level feature was if you died, you could be brought back without components, which
that's kind of weak.
It meant for most of the what do I get at third level? Well, you can't do anything else. It just means if you die, we can bring you back easy. Like, cool. What did everybody else get? Oh, I got new abilities. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I would never choose that subclass if that's what they got at third level. Like that just sounds boring.
Yeah, especially that's when you first get your subclass. That's the first thing you get. It's like, oh.
I think there were some classes that were designed to be played up through the levels, and I think there were some classes that were designed to basically start at higher levels. And I think Path of the Zealot was one of those that, like, when you started at 11th level, you were Path of the Zealot Barbarian.
Sure.
You were pretty much nigh invulnerable and unkillable because of that.
Hashtag bring back prestige classes. That the Path of the Zealot is a prestige class that you should be able to start at level 11.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, but
Yep.
I'm fine if they do things like that. Like, if there's things that really suck at low level, but they have more top end heavy, I'm okay with that. But then it's a trap for players I don't know. So
yeah, and that I'm kind of good with cleaning up those kind of traps for your inexperienced players. But I agree with Jay. Bring back prestige classes.
Yeah, I loved prestige classes. It's what made 3rd edition great.
Great again.
Well, like seriously, if I wanted to play a barbarian, who goes Path of the Zealot, and then I wanted to pick up Paladin and pick a specific, subclass out of that, you're working off of the subclasses or the prestige classes much more so than you were the class. The class wasn't what was important; it was the prestige classes that were.
All right, let's move on to the quintessential barbarian class, which my love for is like a truck.
All right,
the Path of the Berserker.
Berserker, yes. I was expecting one of you to go Berserker, but
no, I wasn't going to start quoting Jay and Silent Bob right now on the podcast.
It wasn't Jay and Silent. It's a song. It existed before Jay.
I know, and everyone knows it because of Jay and Silent Bob. So anyway,
talk to us about the Berserker.
Oh, you want me to? Yeah, I can read what the D&D Beyond says.
I assume Chris has notes because this is near to his heart.
That is fair.
Kenrick said that this subclass is terrifying in the video, and I don't know how much risk there is in playing the Berserker, but you get a lot of reward. You know what I mean? So I don't see where they said that it's been improved across the board, but I don't see where they made it riskier to be going into Berserker stance. Like, when you think from a class flavor standpoint, Berserker goes active and it just starts swinging on everybody. All the bad guys are dead, but he's still swinging, and now the players have to stop the Berserker. Record of Lotus War, I think, was the anime big thing.
Can I read what I'm seeing here?
Sure.
So I don't even know if this is correct because this sounds busted as hell. The biggest change to the Path of the Berserker is the adjustments to Frenzy. Now, instead of giving you an extra bonus action attack, you get additional damage on your first hit each turn. The extra damage is represented by a number of D6s equal to your rage bonus damage. You also don't gain levels of exhaustion for using this ability, which leads me to believe you used to get levels of exhaustion for using it.
You did, yeah.
So in the beginning, that effectively gets you 2 extra D6s on the first time you hit in a turn, and that number will continue to ramp up. It's probably up to +6, so 6 extra D6s at 18th level or whatever it is. That's a substantial amount of extra damage, man, especially since you're already playing a barbarian and you're going to get extra damage.
Yep. I think they did say you do have to be reckless attacking to do it.
Which you're going to do every turn as a barbarian.
Which you're going to do anyways.
Right. So where's the risk?
Yeah, if they're taking away the exhaustion, I see no
just the regular risk of reckless attacking or giving everyone advantage to hit you.
So everybody who plays everybody who plays a barbarian and wants to deal damage is going to pick that path over every other path.
Right. It's like I said, like they made they improved mindless rage, so charmed and frightened are no longer just suppressed; it's outright ended. You get retaliation at level 10 instead of 14. Intimidating presence is now at 14. And it was buffed. I didn't say how it was buffed. And
I think they said it affects multiple creatures in just an area around you.
Yeah,
it used to be one creature, and now it's just a number of creatures around.
It affects multiple creatures, and the frightened lasts up to a minute without you needing to spend your action to extend the duration.
Right. So in the video, they kept saying, "Oh, this is terrifying, and there's huge risk but huge reward." What risk? There's no risk at
Yeah,
all.
I don't know what the risk is unless there's more details in the
There
book
has to be. There better be.
that
I mean,
that
I
talk about
I
some
love
additional risk.
Berserkers. I love Berserkers. I love Rage. Like I said, Incredible Hulk. Great. You send him off in a direction, and everything in that direction dies. But then the problem is that you're now in that direction, and you better stop him. You know, like
Let's just hold off on this one because there's got to be more information, and this is one we need to see the actual book.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I figure we're
I
gonna do this
can.
again when the book
Yeah,
comes out, but
Oh, of
still,
course,
like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
can see why they said because yeah, a lot of people didn't use it because exhaustion is pretty terrible in D&D. And
One level of exhaustion is not that bad, but once you hit that second level, it kind of
yes,
sucks.
yeah, that's why. So
uh,
you could effectively safely frenzy once, sort
yeah.
of, but then after that, like you did not want to do it.
Yeah.
And so the new one is Path of the World Tree. This subclass lets you dish out temporary hit points, shift enemies around the battlefield, all of 4th edition. Increase your reach and versatility with of your weapon mastery properties. And the subclass's capstone lets you teleport around the battlefield along with your allies. And
I like this one.
the specific notes is it's rooted in the Nordic legends of
Clearly,
Yggdrasil, which
yeah.
is
Yeah.
okay. I like that. Um, you can teleport at higher levels. It gives the barbarian a way to support the party by giving them hit points, temporary hit points specifically. I think the Battle Rager used to do that in 4th edition, where like you would hit somebody, get temporary hit points on yourself, and then you do an attack where it would give temporary hit points to other people. But maybe they kind of brought some of that back in.
They kind of mentioned that this is your tanky like barbarian. This is really meant the one that is to be the tank.
Yeah.
It is by giving you and other people some temporary hit points by forcing the enemies to by be able to intercept them and drag them to you and prevent them from getting away. So it's all meant about like you being able to get in the way and take up the attention of the enemy and force them to fight you.
Yeah. So there's a big problem with the Battle Rager, which is this feels very similar to that from 4th edition, where it generated so many temporary hit points that it became unkillable. And there was a popular post on how a guy designed a Battle Rager Barbarian that was not even max level. It was like, I think they went to 30. I think it was like 25 or so. And it single-handedly could defeat Orcus, which in 4th edition, he was the big bad of the edition. And when you could have a single class generate 200 something temporary hit points a turn, it became impossible to kill them and lock
It's
them
not
down.
that many.
I would hope not. I would hope they would learn that lesson. But this kind of plays back to the whole issue that I've had with the potion, where like they seem to be giving a lot of people a lot of extra ways of staying up and
Well, once again,
being
it's the
healed.
power creep, man. It's the power creep. Everything's going to go up in hit points or healing, and combats are going to take longer. That's just the nature of how this kind of stuff goes. You know, you have to wipe everything and make a whole new edition to get rid of that.
And we'll see, because like I like the fact that they're bringing more of the tactical miniature gameplay into line. Like I really hope they bring back the Avenger. I would love that class in 4th edition, as they seem to be focusing more on miniature combat again and positioning minis on the battlefield again. Maybe they can bring Avenger back. A lot of people liked it because of that.
Plus, they can sell more. They can sell more minis.
I think a big part of this will depend on seeing, and unfortunately we're not going to see this until next year. What do the new monsters look like? Can they are they more threatening? Can you deal more damage?
Also, it's how much of this was designed with the VTT in mind.
All of it.
All of it, you know. Whether theirs or some others, you know that a lot of the people, very high percentage of people that play D&D play online nowadays.
And that's unfortunately like the issue with the 4th, because it was so miniature combat. Like they had a lot of great video game variants of it that worked and played fantastically. And like I think it would do great now as a miniature combat game, because that's how it was built. It was built to be a video game. And
was a great board game.
Yeah.
Yeah, the board games, all the board games use 4th edition.
I know. I actually played one of them Friday.
Yeah, they're fantastic. So it's like, how much are they reverting back to some of the things from 4th edition, which it seems like they kind of are, to make the VTT work better? How much? I mean, we've only done 3, and this is all we can really handle. It's just these 3 subclasses right now. But how much of this game is being shifted from tabletop, you know, theater of the mind to miniatures mostly, or miniatures required to, okay, as everyone's using VTT, let's just double down on it.
I mean, they know that their future is, they're banking on this thing becoming big. You know, Hasbro's been struggling. WotC has been somewhat struggling. D&D has definitely been struggling the last couple of years. And this thing, they expect it to make them a lot of money along the way. So
Yeah.
they have to build a role play game system that's going to work with it effectively.
Yeah, that works online. Yeah.
So that's it for this episode, which is already probably close to 2 hours.
Yeah, getting close.
We're going to double up for the next couple of weeks with our releases of the podcast, just to make sure that we cover everything, because spells and crafting come out next week, and we still got a lot of classes to discuss still. So
lots of material for us.
Yeah, we had a drought for like 6 months, guys, but now we're doubling up.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's it.
Any final thoughts about the fighter? Are you going to try playing a fighter now, Jay?
No.
Why not?
It's boring.
They're the best class ever.
No. I'm going to stick with I'm going to stick with wizards, because that's what I like.
When we go over rogue next, guess what?
Chicken butt.
I still hate rogues.
Oh, okay. All right. Bye, Craig.